Jon
Well,
Garza, thank you so much for joining me here today on my CISO Spotlight series for my cyber intelligence newsletter. It has been great getting to know you, and also, this the Spotlight series has afforded me a wealth of opportunities to help tell some stories of some great leaders in our space. So really humbled that you joined us here today. And why don't you kick things off here by giving us a quick intro of who you are, and maybe a quick background on how you came to be where you're at today.
sure. Well, first of all, Dan, thank you so much for the invitation. I really like what you guys are doing here. I enjoy watching the different videos and what other people are doing. It's so interesting to me, and learning from
Absolutely.
so many other people. Um, so yeah, I guess a little background on myself. I've been in IT for over 25 years at this stage, getting closer and closer every day toward that 30 mark, which is a little crazy to say out loud. But and specifically in security, I've been a security leader over the course of my career for about 14 of those years at this stage across different industries with different companies. And all along the way, I've really tried to be cognizant about learning from the different companies I've been a part of, the industries, the uniqueness about them, and then when it comes down to it, the different people that I've come across my path. Um, and I will say, the good and the bad. And I learn from the good, and I try to take all those elements and carry them on. If I go to my next gig or my next industry or whatever that is, and even the bad things, I think I've taken those to heart and really learned probably more from those situations,
Yeah.
whether they're my own mistakes
Oh yeah.
or from mistakes that I've observed others make, and go, wow, I am never going to do that ever.
Yep.
That kind of stuff. But
Yeah. I saw a video recently. I've mentioned this a couple times. It was Tom Brady talking somewhere on a stage, right? And he was talking about like how he remembers the tough losses more than any of the wins.
yeah,
Um, Same with like poker players. You ask poker players, like, you tell me your top like poker stories, and they all describe like their worst beats. Like,
yeah,
I had this like terrible beat, like an ace on the river. And that
totally.
it's multi-time World Series champion, poker champion. Um, but I think that's a great thing to sort of like anchor this conversation is that we learn more from those tough situations than we do, the big rosy wins, right?
Yeah, and specifically for those of us in the industry where we've been a part of cybersecurity incidents, ransomware incidents, business email compromises, whatever those are that you've been faced in your career, especially the bigger ones, those really stick with you. They leave an indelible mark on your psyche or your soul.
Yeah.
Just for
Yeah.
especially those, you're up for, let's say, a couple of days at a time trying to, restore things from an outage. Um, you know, all of those types of things. I remember almost every second of those types of events and what I did in those cases, whether I played a small part or whether I played a bigger part in those. And but you learn from them, and you learn what to do and what maybe not to do the next time that you're faced with situations like that.
Why don't you want to like click in, dig in one of those, like a professional scar that maybe like, and you obviously don't have to like be super
Yeah.
detailed on it, but something that taught you the most, like what's one that
Well,
comes to mind?
I will tell you probably my first interaction with a security incident, and this is going way back to my time when I worked at the university. And I'll even say a little bit more. When I graduated with a bachelor's in finance. And this was, of course, back in the day when there was no cybersecurity degree or even a cybersecurity course at the time.
Yeah. This is
But
computer science, maybe,
maybe,
which
yeah, computer science, and it was maybe some developing
is just
basically.
it was coding and developing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I started working at the University of Houston downtown in the IT department because I needed a job because I
Yeah.
was a poor college student. And I was
Yeah.
like, hey, I think I can do that. I learned so much during my time that it really set the foundation for my entire career. I've made lifelong friends there that I still talk to. And we talk about, remember when we did this stupid thing that was so dumb around IT? And but I learned so much during that time. But my first interaction with a security related incident was I was working on a Saturday in the lab, the student lab, and I was monitoring the university website. And all of a sudden, when I did a refresh of the website as I was poking around, it it the website was defaced. It was a website defacement
Okay.
by a third party, some hacker, and and they didn't do it for any other reason other than that they could. And I think the name they totally changed the whole web page. They defaced it and they basically said, "Hey, you've been had." And it was some goofy attacker group name called the Silver Lords or some goofy name, right? It
Sure.
was probably some script kiddies, but they defaced it, and that was my first interaction. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what do I do?" So I started making phone calls. That was my first interaction with that, and I was like, "Wow, this is it's crazy, but it's kind of cool."
Yeah.
And I took that, and that ended up me getting exposed to so many other types of security attacks. If you remember back in the day, the Melissa worm,
Oh yeah.
the I love you virus, the Anaconda virus that was going,
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
these different things
Yeah.
that were, I remember in my career, some of them, yeah, overnight, you're up all day, all night long trying to resolve and recover from. But they were foundational events in my career that I learned so much from every single one that I tried to carry on forward to help, make the next one, at least the reaction, be much better the next time around.
Yeah. And I'm thankful you shared that. I think first time any IT cyber professional deals with the first sort of like incident that has clear implications and impact, it's kind of eye-opening, right? It is really that like everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth scenario,
Right.
and
Exactly.
you're like, holy crap, like this is actually real. Someone from halfway around the world reached out and touched us here. And
Yep.
now I got to jump into action. I got to figure this out. Um,
Oh,
I remember,
absolutely.
yeah, I remember my first bout with that myself. And if I had done years of advising, but then finally had my first like interaction with a real incident. And I was like very, a little shook by that, right?
Sure.
It's kind of wild. Um,
It's totally different reading it in the news. And then when it
Amen.
affects you and your environment, you're like, it's that oh crap moment. What do we do? And this was in the days before, the existence of true incident response plans.
Yeah.
We didn't know what that was. We could barely
Oh,
spell incident response.
exactly. Exactly. Like you said, I mean, cyber wasn't even a word then, right?
Yeah.
Um, that
Well,
word became a buzzword, I think, in like, 2010, 11, 12, something like that, right? And
exactly.
um, now it's a whole industry, which is wild. But let me ask you, John, like, is that kind of would you call that sort of your defining moment when you knew that you wanted to be more in a cyber role? Because you started more on the IT side, but that was obviously like a moment that uh, stuck with you. Was that the
Yeah.
defining moment for you?
I don't think that was necessarily the defining moment. I think it was a pivotal moment that first piqued my interest in the area. Again, at that time, it was a small, burgeoning, just barely growing of a thing area as more and more of these types of attacks started to come about, right? And at my university that I worked at, University of Houston downtown, there was no cybersecurity director or anyone in that role. It
Sure.
was security was a part of everybody's job,
Yeah.
whether you were a DBA whether you were an application developer, whether
It's
you
just
were the
good
network
IT.
guy,
Good,
it's
yeah,
just you got to have that in there somewhere, right?
yeah,
Well, obviously, you know, that approach wasn't maybe the best at the time, but it was all we could do at the time, right?
right.
So I had what I guess was probably the biggest moment to get me into cyber was after being a network admin for many years and being a server admin and even an old exchange email administrator that I used to do back in the day when in the days of email systems were on premise
Yep.
and having to manage those. Those were fun days. Um, but I had a great mentor, and who was my boss at the time. He's still the CIO at the University of Houston downtown, Hussein Shiroki, and he saw the need to have a dedicated security role at the university,
Wow.
and he approached me about the idea of getting into that role. And if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. So that was if that was a pivotal moment, I think that was really the pivotal moment. And I was like, yes, yes,
Heck
this is
yeah.
great. And then we
Heck
started
yeah.
talking about philosophy, at the time and how react to certain things. But I think the different things that I did, of course, across the course of my IT network admin, server admin, all of that career helped kind of lay that foundation for me to be able to get into cyber. And I think I don't know exactly what he saw in me, but I think he saw something that how I was going to be able to relate into that world and then bring that heightened awareness to the rest of the organization.
That's amazing. I think it highlights the foresight that a great leader that you worked with saw that as an important part of what needed to be addressed there at the university, but also, he had you in mind for that. Um, it sounds like you had a
Yeah,
wonderful relationship with him to begin with.
I did, and I still do to this day. We still talk. Um, yeah, it's none of us get here where we are on our own, and it's only with having key people in your corner and key mentors along the way that we end up where we are and help us. And I hope that I've made attempts to try to do that myself
Yeah.
and kind of pay back, and I hope to continue to do that through the rest of my career, but only because of examples of him doing that for me.
Let's click on that a little more and the power of relationships. You and I were talking a little bit about that before the call started, and
Yeah,
how important that is in this field. And it seems like a big field, but I think in comparison to like other professions, it's really not. Um, and it's a small industry with, I would dare to say, very driven by relationships. Everything from how how and who you learn from to how you can get ahead or find opportunities for yourself, or just be taught new things. Like,
yeah.
tell me, about the importance of relationships in your life.
As the more that I got into security as a security leader, and trying to understand different organizations,
Mhm.
um, you've got to talk to people. Having the cool hacking tools and the greatest whiz bang technology out there is great, and you got to have some of that. But you're never going to be successful in almost any career without really good relationship building skills. And when it comes to security, and especially when you're coming new into an organization, you're going to have to build those relationships and understand who to tap on the shoulder when you need it. But you've got to start that early on. There's a saying that goes,
Yeah.
you don't want to meet, the key people while you're in the middle of an incident.
No.
It's almost too late because you don't know how they're going to react and you don't know how
Amen.
you're going to react. So
Amen.
you got to do all of that getting to know you stuff with those key people
Oh,
way in advance of that
I
because you
say
know
that
it's gonna go ahead.
I say that all the time. It's so funny you're saying this. One of our key pieces of advice when we're working with a client, we see like they haven't put much thought into their incident response planning or like their
Yeah,
whole idea is, oh yeah, we've got a document and we've got a insurance policy. I'm like, well, does does anyone on the other end of that insurance policy like know who you are or like
right.
know your name or like what your systems look like? And my advice is always like, you never want to be saying, how do you do uh, on your worst day, right? Like
Exactly.
you got to build those relationships so early. And that's so true across like everything we do.
Absolutely. And so that's why, um, whether you're coming new into an organization or you're in an existing organization for many years, you still have to have those relationships. And that can be when you're talking about dealing with incidents. It can be when you're just trying to solve a problem in the
Yes.
organization or address a gap. You've got to go, maybe talk to the other business leader that it might be affecting the most and say, look, we found a gap. This is what we're proposing to do. I need your support. And most of the time, if you're reasonable, they'll come along and say, look, this is going to be a win for you. It's going to be a win for me. And at the end of the day, it's a win for the entire organization. Let's go do this. Right.
Amen. Yeah.
And that's how you really get stuff accomplished. But I've seen so many people take the opposite approach. So many security leaders say, all right, I'm going to sit in my ivory tower and say, thou shalt do this and thou shalt do that. And then meanwhile, I'm going to sit back and just see if it happens. Well, good luck
Yeah.
because most of the time it's not going to work like that. That approach doesn't work. You can attract more bees with honey than anything
Yeah.
else. And that's not the way to do it, you know?
Amen. Yeah. I think
Well,
I heard Brian Chesky, the founder of Airbnb once, and
mhm.
they talked about like, growth and how things start to get siloed and um, layers of management. And I think it was him that said the only way to manage the work is to be part of the work, right?
Right.
Like there is no magical like
But
management layer where we sit around and talk about feelings and um, you know, it's all related to the work, right? And
sure.
the most effective managers like understand and can opine on what's happening and how to make it better and how to try new things and to work
Yeah.
through the actual problems at hand together. And I think it takes that hands-on approach. And
Yeah.
um, to me, cybersecurity is very much like a apprentice mentorship field, right? Like you said it. I'm in the same boat. Like I learned from so many great people coming up that I still have a
Mhm.
relationship with today. That if it wasn't for them and the opportunities they gave me and the like little chances I took along the way, I would not be here right now, for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
None of us get here on our own,
yeah,
regardless of, and if anybody says that,
that's
yeah,
total BS. Total
it's total
freaking
BS.
BS.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree. Um, awesome. John, I would love to hear like from your perspective and in your seat, you probably have a unique perspective on this. Also, given your industry and that you work in today is definitely also very unique. Um, we talk a lot about like overhype, underhype in this field, and Lord knows, like there's a lot of stuff that's hyped. I mean, the marketing campaigns and dollars behind some of the solutions and tools and
Yep.
uh, there's a big grab for security budgets. Um, from your perspective, John, like what do you feel like is sort of overhyped versus under?
Well, I think, I go back to earlier when, cloud was kind of a thing and everything was cloud, cloud. We got to move everything to the cloud. A lot of hype around that. And I think, being several years past that
Yeah,
phase, there's a lot of organizations that probably, they went out too far ahead, too fast. And then now you've seen some organizations kind of pull back and say, you know what, going to cloud doesn't fix all of our problems. It fixes some
Yeah.
problems. And then for those of us in security, it definitely doesn't solve any security risks. I think it just changes or adds a different type of risk, right?
Yes.
And so now with the latest thing that's out there, it's not even a buzzword anymore. There's reality around it, around the use of AI. But I was at a conference recently where it's a bunch of security leaders sitting around without vendors in the room, and we're guilty of this, where it was created and designed for us to sit around and talk about different security challenges we have. And they come in with a set agenda of 2 or 3 items, and then from there the conversation is just supposed to flow. In this particular session that I was in, there was no mention of AI at all. And I think it was by design. But not even 3 minutes into the conversation, somebody inserted AI into the conversation. I get it. It's reality of what we're dealing with on the day to day right now. But I think when it comes to kind of philosophy, I love AI. I use it all the time now for certain things. At the same time, but the philosophy that I have prescribed personally to is myself, and I try to promote amongst my teams, is keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
I'm reminding myself the KISS principle. Okay, are we doing the basics first? If we can't do, um, I'll go with the old football analogy. If we're not doing the basic things of blocking and tackling, almost everything else doesn't matter. You've got to be able to perfect the fundamentals first before we start to get too fancy. And in security, you've got to do a lot of the basic pillars of protection and just security principles first before you start bringing in the complexities that AI brings in, and or any other technology for that matter.
And even in, we'll call it some of these frontier technologies like AI or where cloud was, 10 years ago, the the KISS analogy uh applies there too, right? Like
Yes.
at the end of the day, I think the hype often comes from this gap in understanding. Like
Yes.
it feels like hype because you don't actually understand maybe the actual capabilities yet. And
Mm-hmm.
when you start to like unpack what, AI is doing, whether it's like the agentic stuff or LLMs, and you start to learn it and how it's operating, what it's doing, and oh, okay, this is like a fancy word tumbler that's making educated guesses based on like my like very vague inputs, right? And
Right. And I think what we
my
have to be careful of is that, a lot of organizations, a lot of especially people that are selling products, they it's like they're required to put AI in their marketing stuff, their
oh
plan.
yeah, oh yeah,
But sometimes, if you really look under the hood, is it really AI or is it just machine learning dressed up as AI? And I
yep,
think many of us, if when you look into the details of it, oh, it's just machine learning. We've been doing this for years, but AI is the big buzzword of the time. I get it.
oh yeah,
And I'm not saying that AI, true AI, is not, is particularly overhyped. I think there's a huge amount of potential of what we can do from an industry or
agreed.
even as the technology with AI. Um, Definitely, I think more so than if to back to my cloud analogy. I think we can do a lot more from AI perspective than we ever could even with cloud. But but I think we have to be really careful of, again, don't get too focused on the red shiny object if we're not taking care of the basics first.
Yep,
Then we can focus attention on that.
amen, amen. Yep,
Yeah.
totally agree. Um, I'd love to ask, are there any uncomfortable truths that you see in our enterprise security today?
Uncomfortable truths.
Yeah,
I
like
think, well, go
people
ahead.
think, yeah, like people think, you know, they have this idea about cybersecurity, but really under the hood, um, it's a whole different vantage point that you see things from.
Yeah, I think it depends on your audience, right? And I think I get the most fun out of or enjoyment out of talking about what we do to people that don't live it on the day to day. And so
Yeah,
other parts of the business, helping them understand what we do from a security perspective and breaking it down, going back to my KISS principle, breaking it down into the simplest terms that they can relate to and maybe say, well, this can be an issue for you, perhaps in your personal life, your family's life, your kids' life, your elderly parents can be affected by this stuff, right? Because they can get scammed. Um, if you can frame what we do in that kind of a context, I think the non-technical person is much easier to grasp a lot of these concepts. And then they can, if you really, again, back to the relationship building, you can make them possibly an advocate of
yeah,
cybersecurity inside and outside of the organization because it really affects everybody at some level. And it can personally and in your career. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I liken it to this idea of like what I tell people that aren't in this field that there are bad guys that get up and go to work and clock in just like we do,
yeah,
but their job is to reach into your pocket and take your money, right?
yes,
And just with the internet and the way things are, that they get to do that from halfway around the world, right? And when when we explain that uncomfortable truth and people realize that that is the world we live in, like it becomes real. And then like people like you and me can actually tell stories of like how we see this in our day to day.
sure,
And, you know, I think for us, we're so used to it, right? Because we see all the bad things that can and do happen. Um,
yeah,
but, for the non-initiated, those that aren't in our field that are out there, uh, that's sometimes jaw-dropping for them to understand.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think if I draw back to another uncomfortable truth for security leaders, especially when you're talking to, let's say, your C-suite or your board, I think there's some of us that prefer to take the approach of when you're giving a kind of a state of the union of your cybersecurity program to the board. Hey, everything's great. We're doing this. We're doing all these things. Everything is awesome. But I don't think you're doing yourself any favors or your organizations any favors if you do take that approach. So
Yeah,
my uncomfortable truth would be don't be afraid to tell those, especially those that hold the purse strings, where you have some serious gaps, where you have some real true challenges. You know what?
yeah,
We've been trying to, hammer our head against this particular problem and we're not having any luck. Um, Now at the same time, you got to come up with some solutions. You just can't come to them with problems. You got to have some possible opportunities to resolve those. But maybe you need their assistance to remove some barriers so that way you can get those problems solved. But don't be afraid to bring those issues to light to those folks because that's what they're looking at you for as the security leader. They've got tons of other things to worry about on the business side. But if you don't tell them you've got an issue here that needs some addressing and you need some support, whether that's, financial resources, some other type of resources, or help in other parts of the business that maybe you haven't built a relationship on, try to see them hopefully as an advocate for you. And hopefully they view you in the same way. But again, it goes back to you got to have those conversations early on, build those relationships so that
yeah,
way you can have those difficult conversations. Because if you just tell them everything's great, um, you're not going to really solve anything there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you have to have that relationship capital in place to be able to like
But but
have a
but
real moment and say, like, I understand there's limitations or whatever it might be, but I really want you to understand how this could hurt us. Like if
exactly.
we don't fix this thing, or if we go on like the way we're going on today, that
But
is your decision, but I want you to understand the realness behind it. And this is how we could get hurt from that.
right.
And
And I think oftentimes that you might need to pull real world examples of that particular gap, how
yep,
that has affected other companies, either in your same industry or in different industries. And then it can start to be real. It can't be a manufactured risk, right?
yeah,
It's got to be, you got to make it real for them.
a fairy tale, like a fable, right? Like,
Exactly.
uh, yeah, take the examples from Dan's Cyber Intelligence Weekly newsletter, print them out, and show them to your board or
Exactly.
audit committee. Like, this is what can happen. Uh,
Right.
shameless plug, shameless plug.
Yes. Good insertion there. Good insertion.
Absolutely. Uh,
Yeah. But
so, John, let me ask you. I mean, you've obviously have been a great leader in the space, and one
but
thing that we know about our great cyber professionals is that they truly see this as like you know, a war between the good guys and the bad guys, and they're out there to fight the good fight every day. And there's obviously no like shortage of work for us to do on a
yeah.
daily basis, right?
Yeah.
So what are some strategies or solutions that you found have worked well to help like make sure your teams stay fresh and healthy and effective?
I think there's the concept of professional development that I think as a leader we have to support our teams
Yep.
and have them, whether that's attend a conference or meet with some sort of local community group like a B-side kind of thing or
Yeah.
something like that. Get out there and open your mind to what else is going on out there. I think at the base of that is you've got to keep learning, right? I I'm just a guy learning in this space like everybody else every
Amen.
day.
Yep.
Uh, and hopefully I pick up some things along the way that I can bring to my team and have them, go and investigate, or maybe they can put in practice and see if it works. And you know what? If it doesn't work, okay, well then we'll go try another thing. Um, you know, Alec, Alexander Graham Bell, what he took, I don't even know what the number is, how many attempts at trying to, or no, Thomas Edison, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
with the
Edison.
light bulb.
Yes.
Edison with
Yes.
the light bulb. How many
It's like
attempts did he
hundreds
take
of attempts, right? Yeah.
until he finally was successful, right? So you've got to keep trying and pivoting and trying to figure out what's the best way we can address this. Trying to
Yep.
take that as an example of don't be afraid to fail. Now, I will say you've got to test some things, right? I will say back in the day I was guilty of trying something out in technology and it failing miserably because I didn't test it. Well, you know what? I never did that again.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
kind of learn from that, right? So you don't want
Oh
to
yeah.
fail in an extraordinary way because you've tested it, right? So I put some caution there with the trying new things concept,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
But only because
And
I've done it.
in a measured
I've made
way.
those mistakes in a measured way, totally. But going back to the professional development, yeah, I like to promote my teams to get out there and learn in different things. And yeah, you don't have to go to a conference. You can just read stuff
Yeah,
online. Play with AI agents or whatever.
exactly.
Um, all those kinds of things because I
Yeah.
enjoy doing that stuff.
Yeah, me too. And I wish I had more time to do more of it. And cyber is one of those unique fields where I think there is so much of that out there for us to consume and learn from.
Totally.
It like that's what kind of drew me in the early days was like, wait a second, you mean all these like tools and like information, this is all like freely available and open source? Like, yeah, because like the good guys want to work together, right? And
Yeah,
like that's awesome, right? And so there's lots of opportunities to do that.
totally. You're if you're not constantly learning in this business, you're doing it wrong, man. You just
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
Um, because this stuff changes so fast. You have to keep up with the times
Yep.
to keep your skills fresh. And that's for
I don't,
leaders and that's for technical folks too.
yep. I honestly, it's hard for me to like point out another field where I feel like you have to stay so sharp with new stuff all the time. Um,
Yeah, the threats
you're,
are coming out, they're evolving. And if you don't evolve along to how to, in terms of your way of defending against those
yep,
threats and attacks, then you're going to fall just that much further and further behind.
yep,
And you're going to
yeah,
put your company at risk and, and potentially you put your own career at risk
hmm
if you're not doing those things.
1000%. Yep.
Yeah.
Um, so John, I talk to a lot of younger folks coming up in the industry a lot, right? And um, whether it's meeting them at conferences or they apply for jobs here, and I hear from a lot of them that like, yeah, like I want to be a CISO, like, okay, why? Like tell me your thought process. Like I know like it sounds like it's the pinnacle job in a cyber career in a lot of ways. Um, but I think they often have a misconception of like what that actually entails and what that means.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear from you, like what are some misconceptions that you think they have, and what does it actually mean to be a CISO? Like, what are some of those things they're probably not thinking of?
Um, I had someone reach out to me on LinkedIn that I kind of knew through another connection, and they wanted to talk to me exactly about this a few years ago. And I don't think I gave them the answer that they were expecting. I think they were looking for kind of an easy button.
Yeah,
And I'm like, yeah, dude, there was nothing easy about how I got to sit in this chair. And then the other side about that is be careful what you ask for or what you wish for. Because I mean, when I kind of got into that kind of a role where you're head of security, name whatever the title is, CISO, but at the end of the day, you're the security leader. Um, there's a lot more that you have to worry about. So okay, now you're here, then you kind of ask yourself, now what? Where's the magic potion?
yeah,
Oh yeah, that doesn't exist. There's no magic button here that's going to help solve all the problems. And you have to be really humble in your own self and say, I don't have all of the answers either. But now you're tasked with you got to go out and find the answers and
yeah,
reach out to whoever you need to figure that stuff out. But it you've got to be willing as someone coming up, you've got to be willing to get your hands dirty for one, and it may not be in the thing that you think is going to get you directly to security. It's got to be in different aspects of technology, whether
yep,
that's database administration, whether that's code development, whether that's um, being in the help desk area. Um, you've got to get exposed to different parts of an IT organization to see how they function. But then if you're able to pivot and go into a different area and learn a different one there, and then after a little while get exposure to a different part, I think if you're able to do some of that over the course of a few years, that can set a foundation for you along with the interest in cybersecurity and knowing some of these concepts that can help you lay that foundation of okay, now maybe I can take the leap into that. And again, hopefully you got to have the right mentor kind of recognize some of that in you, but you
yeah,
have to have the right aptitude of constant learning and constant education. And while certificates are great, they serve a purpose. You just have to have that kind of innate learning in your DNA that you just constantly want to be learning something new in technology.
absolutely. Yeah, and you don't always have to be the world's foremost expert, but you got to stay on top of it. So at least like how to delegate to your team or to the right person on your team to be the expert, right?
Right.
Um, and I
And you got to
also,
hire people. when it comes to bringing people onto your team,
Yeah.
you want to hire really smart people. I know
Amen.
other security leaders that they want to be the smartest guy in the room. They're afraid of bringing these other folks in, even with
Yeah.
different skill sets. I think that's a big mistake. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
you've got to be humble in your own self confidence that you can handle that. And
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, you've got to hire them because hopefully they're going to make you shine and help protect the organization, which is, by the way, that's why you're there.
Look, I say it all the time, John. I am lucky that I founded this company because I don't think I'd be able to get a job here otherwise at this point in the maturity of this company. Um, and look,
Then you're
that's by
doing it right.
design. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
you're doing it
Like
right.
I I don't want to be the guy that has to feel like I have to answer every question. That's impossible, right? There's great, smart people out there, and I'm good at my thing, and they're good at their thing, and that's a great way to look at it. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so one of my favorite questions I love to ask, if you could put a message on a billboard that every new CISO had to read once a day when they drive by it on their way into the office, what would that say and why?
I'd want to put this on a billboard for other CISOs and probably for my own kids too to see. And I'll go back to the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't get too complex in your own thoughts.
Yeah,
You've got to really accomplish the basics and make sure that you're doing that. Go back to the basics. Are we doing some of the things? Are we putting MFA on all of our accounts? Are we doing the right things around our password security policies?
is the
Um,
operating system secure and patched? Like, yeah,
yes, those basic fundamental things. If you got to do those really well. And by the way, when you asked me earlier about how my week was going, when you really think you've got that accomplished,
yeah,
something will pop up out of almost nowhere.
yep,
And then you ask yourself, how the heck did that happen?
yep,
When it comes to you thought you just had it covered, and right when you thought you did, something just pops up out of the ground. You go, "Oh my gosh, are you serious?
yep,
Are you serious?" And then okay, then and that kind of it's kind of like I'll use another sports analogy. It's kind of like golf. I like to play golf. I'm not good at it, but I enjoy getting out there. But there will be over the course of a round of golf a shot that you take that you're like, wow, it's amazing.
oh yeah, I know
And
that.
then you're like, I loved it. And you can't wait to get to the next hole or get to the next, play another round the next day. And then you get out there and then you realize, oh my God, it's terrible. That's terrible. What happened to that thing that I just did before? I can't replicate it now. So
It
right when
keeps you
you think
coming
you're
back
doing it,
though.
but
Keeps
you
you
do
coming
keep
back.
coming back, right? Because you have that in the back of your brain. You're trying to repeat that
Yep.
feeling, try to repeat
Oh,
that
I
golf
know
stroke
that.
that you had.
Amen.
Um, but you've got to just kind of keep that there, so that way you're trying to, I guess, all right, you're in some way you're kind of striving for whatever you want to define greatness as,
Yep.
but that's what you're trying to shoot for. But yeah, that's just kind of how I look at it.
That's great advice. That is great advice, and that's a great saying. And I think it's easy in this field to get lost in your thoughts and to let some of the hype trickle in and start to take your thought process in a lot of different ways. But if you have systems to keep things simple and make sure you're executing on the basic things well, that's a recipe for success. And then eventually it allows you to focus on, the other stuff.
Right.
Um,
You still got to worry about it, and you probably still will worry about the more complex types of attacks, but there's probably a larger portion of the attacker population. They're going to go after the easy stuff because that's just how humans are.
yep. Yep. Well, John, I know we're getting close on time here, and I wanted to ask you kind of final question. You mentioned you've worked with a lot of talented leaders and coworkers and colleagues, mentors, etc. If you had someone that you could shout out and show some gratitude for, who would that be?
So the gentleman that I mentioned earlier on, my original mentor, Hussein Shiroki, was
Yep,
my CIO for my first security role, first security leader role at the University of Houston downtown. He's still doing it, and he's still doing it strong.
amazing.
He's a guy that he just loves technology, and he loves getting into the details. His background, he's an old programmer, an old developer guy at heart, and
Nice.
I will tell you, he will get into the weeds. When I was in security, he was sitting there next to me when I'm trying to browse through different logs when I'm trying to do an investigation.
Yeah,
I'm like, don't you have something more important to do? And he did, but he enjoyed it just as much as I did.
he sounds like a teacher. He sounds like he's very into
Well,
teaching.
um, I, I don't he I don't think that he knew what he was doing. Maybe he did. I don't know. I should ask him. But I definitely learned a lot from him for sure.
That's
And there's
cool.
things that I keep I try to carry on in my own career as a security leader and try to emulate that, um,
Love that.
and share that with other folks. Yeah,
Well, thank you to Dr. Shiroki for helping mentor and guide you because we wouldn't be having this conversation today if that didn't happen. So,
that's absolutely true. I wouldn't be here without it.
amen. Well, John, hey, it's been fantastic having this conversation with you, and really appreciate you being part of this podcast, and um, really appreciate your leadership and the relationship we have. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Love what you guys are doing. Keep doing it.
Awesome. Have a great one. Thank you, John.